Hello, game devs. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to create a set of scoring. We're going to do a little bit of UI work, and then how to go from one scene or level to the next scene, and how to make sure that we can have some data that goes between those, like the score, for instance, or the player health, between two spots. So to do that, we're going to create a new game object. And this is pretty typical in game development, that we're going to create. Oops, that's our scene. We're going to create a game object, and we're going to create an empty game object, and it's going to be at position 0, 0, 0. Again, zero it out is the term, or go set it to origin. And this game object is going to be called GameManager. GameManager is an empty game object. We're going to attach some scripts to it in a little bit. But what it is a object that is designed to persist between levels so that it can manage or it can keep track of points and health, and it allows you to know where you're at inside the game. Because just like in code, where every single C# script is kind of individual, it doesn't have the ability to talk to the other ones unless you tell it and give it special permission to talk to other scripts. Scenes are the same way. Each one is compartmentalized, and when we load from one to another, we have to remake, or we have to carry over all of the data that we have that we want to keep. So now that we have this game manager, we're going to, in our scripts folder, we are going to create a C# script called Game Manager. Whoops. And we're going to open that up. We're going to open this up, and I like to put a lot of things in public just so we can monitor it, but we're going to do a couple things. First is we're going to create a public integer, and this is going to be called player score. So the player score is going to go up by a certain amount. We're going to set this equal to 0 at first, because it's just, that's what it's going to be. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to store player health. Now, we could store player health on the player character, but in this case, we're just going to use it here. Public int player health equals, we'll say 10. And let's see, what else? We're also going to set a timer. So just like, and this timer is going to be something that ticks down and stops the game. So just like in Street Fighter or whatever. And we're just going to use the same kind of information. So we can just go to this if timer dealy. We can copy this, and we can go to our game manager, and I'm going to put this in its own function. I'm going to call this void game timer, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, open brace, close brace. I'm going to make sure to call my game timer. So inside of our update function, we're going to call not game manager, game timer, and then semicolon. Okay, so what we're going to do is create a timer that counts down. So what we're going to need, it's going to be very similar to our spawn bullet timer and the countdown that we need. So what we need to know is there's a public boolean ready to fire, there's 2 floats, there's the timer, and then there's like the actual time, that amount that you want to have pass. So public float timer, and we can use the same name because, like I was just mentioning before, scripts don't talk to each other unless we make them. So, and we're going to set this timer equal to 100. And we're going to say public float game over, or not float, excuse me, boolean, bool, game over equals false. or I should say timer over equals false. So, because game over, that might be more of a menu thing or some other insta. We want to make sure that we keep our verbiage correct and kind of, in the context of games as a whole. So we have these two, and we're not going to actually need the other one because we're just going to count down from 100, and we're just going to keep going, and then we're just going to say when less than 0. So we've got our void game timer here, and we're going to say we're going to look at our code if ready to fire is false, and then timer plus time, we're going to minus it instead. So we're going to say if timer over equals true false, excuse me, if time over equals false, then we want to timer minus equals time dot delta time. So this is saying every single frame minus the amount of real time that was happening to from the timer. So it's sometimes a float. And so we're going to have this timer ticking down. And then once we've got another function in here, or we can put it inside here to be a little cleaner and nest it. If timer over is, or excuse me, not timer over. So we put if timer is less than 0, set our Boolean value timer over equals true. Now, we're going to use this later, but for now, we're just going to see that it works and that it will trigger timer over equals true. So it's going to count down. Now that we have this game timer, we're going to say time over equals true. What happens equals true? Well, maybe we want to create a new scene. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new scene, and we're going to say game over, and then we're going to go from that scene back to this one as a reset. That way we can continue to reset the game instead of hitting refresh on our window, which is kind of how it would work at the moment. And then in that new scene, we're going to create some UI elements, and then we're going to come back to this one. So now that we have timer equals true, let's create ourselves a little menu and watch that tick down. So to do that, let's create a game object, and then we're going to go to UI, and then what we're going to put in is text. Now there's a bunch of different stuff. Now, one thing you want to notice is that when you add a canvas, it adds a text field because I added a text field, and it adds an event system. The event system is important for you to be able to interact with the UI. There is also a different kind of UI system called UI elements that Unity has. We're not going to be going over this today, but once we have a tutorial, there'll be a link down below towards UI elements specifically, which is designed more around like a web design, CSS. You can change your hierarchy, that kind of stuff. And it's a different system than this one. So if you see different tutorials out there, that's what's happening. This is the UI editor, a Unity UI system they've had for a couple years. So if you notice on the right hand side in our inspector, I have this text object, I have this canvas. So let's look at this canvas first. So you can kind of see it. It's huge, and it's got like some words on it. This is actually our text box. So what this is, this object is a big flat 2D object field that is going to use a separate camera to render it onto your screen. Now you can actually set it so that this is screen space overlay. That means that it's going to be like overlaid onto your screen, but we can also do screen space camera and world space. So these world space we're going to do a little bit later to make health pop up over the heads of our destructible objects. But for now, we're going to keep it on screen space overlay. You're also there's some scalings, objects and constraints that we're not going to go into too much. And then this graphics raycaster thing, you can ignore this for now. But it's about how objects are sorted in the UI. So if we go back to our text object, we have this rect transform. This is how we how we can set different positions for our UI. So if we go up to the top left, we can place it in the top left, and that's what we want to do. We want to anchor it there. There's also stretching and alignments here. So this is where we can get some anchoring so that it kind of sticks wherever. Because one of the problems with game development is that we have hundreds of different kind of resolutions, Mac, PC, and between those, there's many different graphics cards and like 3x4. How do you make all your UI look really great? You need to take the time to make it flexible so that it will adjust itself to different screen resolutions. So this is our text here. And actually, if we just play now, we'll see new text, and we'll probably see it in the top left corner. It's actually, you can see it right there. I can't. Here. So, oops. If I pause, it goes out of the screen. So you can see it says new text. It's kind of in the middle on the left there. That's fine for now. But it's not very big. Let's increase its size. There we go. We don't need line spacing, but we might want it to be bold. And we can set the alignment differently as well. All the same kind of text stuff. Now I'm probably going to hit play and then it's going to go away. Because when we're inside of the play, remember, all this information will be changed back to default. So I'm just going to change it to the text to anything we want, really. But for now, we're going to say timer : space 100. And this is just going to be the initial timer. In fact, yeah, no, we'll do it. We'll set it at 100. We're going to actually access this script and then update it as we go. So the font, we're going to maybe change it to 24, and then we're going to set it to bold just so we can see it. We need, because we want to say, hey, timer, make it read out the time, this actual time, because right now it's just static. So if we press play, it'll just say score or timer equals 100. Watch right here where the mouse is. It's going to pop. Timer equals 100. It just stays there because it's a static text. We're not actually doing anything. Okay. All right. So now that we have the game timer set up, we have the text object. What we need to do is we actually need to have a new include. Because we don't have the access to the Unity UI engine right now. So Unity engine.ui. So if we don't include it, it actually isn't there. So we need to stick that up there so we have the ability to access objects like text. And then we need to say public text. And that won't show up correctly if it's not like that. Timer text semicolon. So, there are ways to fetch information and do things like that. But just because it's really easy to drag and drop and make it really clear to you as a novice, we're using public variables. But just know that, there are cleaner ways to do this, and programmers might mention that in the future to you. So now that we have our game manager, it has a timer text, none text. Let's drag in our texts field. And now we've got it right there. So now we can access that going forward inside of our script. And then let's update the name of it. So we have our name, which is timer text. Let's update it right underneath where we actually create it. Timer text equals. And then what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to put in what it is that we want to have in here. We're going to type into timer text is timer dot toString open parenthesis and then close parenthesis and what this is. And toString, this creates a string word because one of the things that we're going to see is we cannot oh, okay. It seems like I have done one thing. This is timer text, the object component, but what we need to do is actually access the text field in there. So that was why I was getting that error. That was dumb of me. But sometimes that happens where you have to stare at something in an error for a little bit. So what this is saying is set the text of it to timer.string. And toString, the reason is because we cannot convert a float, which is a decimal number, to a string value, which is what this is taking. So now we should have something that at least counts down. And there you go. It is counting down. There's a lot of decimal places. We can change that if we wanted to. For now, I think we'll leave it there. So we have a 100-second countdown timer in our game manager. So let's create a way to go to a new menu. So we're going to save this scene because we haven't done that for a while. It's always good to save. And then we're going to go into our scenes view and we're going to create a new scene, and this scene is going to be called main menu. In this scene, we're going to have basically nothing, but we're going to go to it. And the way we do this is we need to go through the SceneManager. So if we go into File, Build Settings, right now the only scene that is loaded is Test Scene 01. We're going to add an not add open scene. We are going to drag the main menu into this slot, and now the main menu is also loaded. This is the index number. These are the names. We're gonna. You could access things by index numbers in this next part, but we'll probably be doing it mostly by name just to make it clear. So now that we've done that, we're gonna have this timer here. When the timer is over, we're going to go to the main menu. And instead of having a timer at 100, I'm just going to... actually, why don't I keep it at 100? I'll bump it down in this scene. So I'm going to go to my game manager. Where is it? There it is. I'm going to say timer equals 5 seconds. And then when we go back in here, it'll still say 100. And then what we're going to do is when the timer is over, when timer equals true, we're going to go to the next level. We're going to go to the next level. And to do that, we're going to, again, need to use some more using up here. So we're going to go up here, go to using, Unity, if I can spell Unity today, engine dot scene management. Semicolon. All right, so now that we're using scene management, we're going to be able to access the build settings and be able to go from one scene to another. The reason why we don't include everything all the time, by the way, is so that the game will run more quickly, because every time you load one of these libraries, you're going to have to use more processing power to access everything and have it search through stuff. So we try to keep it light. Keeping code light means keeping it without a lot of plugins and or libraries, but it depends on what code you're using. All right, so all we have to do to get to the scene is we have to have an if statement. If what is it called? If timer over equals true, time over equals true, then we want to say SceneManager dot load scene, and then scene name. So we're going to say main menu. And again, it's really important that you have to use quotes. I forgot to put quotes in there. It's really important that you get the spelling and the capitalization correct. Otherwise, it will not work. All right. And let's make sure that since we created a scene called main menu, but we didn't really put anything in it yet because we haven't opened it. So let's go to scenes. Let's go to main menu. Let's save this. And then let's go over here and go to game object, create UI. And then we're going to create a text field for now. This text field is going to be really big, 50. And it's going to say my first FPS. And I'm just going to center it. I'm just doing this all, on the fly here, but you can always align your menus to do 2D mode. And this is kind of how you can check out your menu. Whoops. There we go. I'm zooming way out, but this is the big object here. But you can actually adjust all of these menu items, as you need to. So if this is my first FPS, and maybe this is where the screen is, you can very quickly start editing things. We'll add a button in here in a little bit, but for now, this is all that's happening. So we'll save this. We'll go back to our test scene, and then we can turn 2D mode off. And then if we hit play, after 5 seconds, it should automatically go to that game window mode. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Boop. My first FPS. There we go. So we're in another menu or another scene. That's pretty cool. This is how you could load between levels. If you don't care, especially if you don't care about the data, we haven't started doing that yet, but this is how you can kind of start doing it. So you've got my first FPS menu. Let's go back to that main menu. And let's do a little bit more UI work now that we've started getting in the mode. So let's go select our canvas system. Let us go to game object and then add a UI element, a button. And you notice there's toggles, sliders, scroll bars, drop down menus, input fields. These are all different raw images or irregular images. So we're going to use a button because it's nice and fast. And we're going to align things. So one of the things you'll notice about buttons that are different, so there's a lot of colors, selections, normal, highlighted, rollover, all that kind of thing. I'm not going to mess around with that, but please do take the time to take a look through it. But we've got a source image. So the source image is what we call a 9 tile. Now, a 9 tile is a small square space because like this button needs to be able to be changed all the time. And the font is different. The background might be different. So this is just the default one. But like if you wanted to put like a big clock area or, if it's like a steampunk thing, you could put like clock backgrounds and then it would automatically tile. This is the top bar, sidebar, bar, and these are the corners. So they tile automatically. So it's really valuable. The other thing the button has is this thing, on click. List is empty because we don't have anything to click yet. But if we if we create ourselves a empty game object and we call that, we make sure it's zeroed out, which it is definitely not 0, 0, 0. We just always want to be clean. We're going to rename this game object. game manager. And we're going to attach a different script to it in a second that we're going to create. But this button here needs something, which object it's going to access, and then there's going to be functions in here. So we're going to select Game Manager, we're going to drag it in here like that, and then it's going to allow us to access the functions that are in here. Now, right now we don't have anything that is on it for that matter, but we're going to use a special script, or a new script, I should say. So script, we're going to go create new C# main menu buttons. Or main menu. We'll just keep it main menu. And we're going to drag this main menu on. Oops, looks like it didn't come along. We're going to drag that onto the game manager. And now that we have it in the game manager, let's open it up. Obviously, there's nothing in here yet. So what we want to do is we want to create a new function. And we need to use the same game. So if we're in our game manager code here, we need UI engine scene management and using Unity engine UI, excuse me. So we're going to grab both of those, poof, hit those in there. And then we're going to say public void, because we need to expose this. Public void go to level. Open parenthesis, close parenthesis. We're going to do all the things we need to do. And then we are going to say scene manager dot load scene. And then the scene name would be, in this case, what is it? Test scene 01, I think. Test scene 01. We'll have to make sure that's true and make sure that this is there. Semicolon. So it's just one line of code. And in fact, oops, I put an S there instead of hit save. I'm going to delete these for now. I can actually get rid of everything in here except this one function. And then when we go to our button here, or select our button, and then we go down to runtime only on click, Game Manager is still the thing there, and the Game Manager has the main menu CS script. So we're going to go to no function, and look at this. Main menu is now a piece of code on the and main menu is now a piece of code that is on the game manager, so we can access it. And these are all the normal things here, but look at this, go to level. This is the important one. This is the code that I made, and you can automatically create code using buttons here to update that. So that if we hit save, now we're in this scene now. Let's press play from this menu. And we see the button, it rolls over. We could have a highlighted color of something interesting just for funsies. And 4, 3, 2, 1, back to menu. Awesome. All right, so here we go. We're starting to get the main gameplay loop. We've got a button here. From here, you might want to put your name on it. You might want to say, create a new credits menu. You could create an object that is the credits if you'd like. So you could have a button, and instead of having it go to another level, you could turn on and off, like another menu that you created based off of the game objects in game object UI. There's a bunch of different stuff in here.